What makes for a great combat isn't difficulty, it's responsibility. Expedition 33 gets that. When something goes wrong, it's on you. Your build, your timing, your decisions. Combat doesn't just unfold in front of you, it reflects you as a player, and that's why it feels so good. One of my favorite parts of RPG combat has always been experimenting with builds. Trying combinations that maybe weren't intended and seeing what breaks and what surprisingly works. The Pictos and Lumina system feeds directly into that. You only get 3 Pictos per character, and that restriction is what makes it interesting to me. If you could stack everything onto one character, there'd be no real decision making. But with only 3 slots, every choice feels intentional. You're constantly asking yourself what role this character is meant to fill. And then you start to realize something. You're not just building 3 characters, you're building a complete roster. Do you load your strongest Pictos onto your main squad and make them overwhelming? Or do you spread them out so your backups aren't useless if things fall apart? And now you're starting to plan for failure, for long fights and for mistakes. And that decision carries weight. Lumina itself adds another layer. Now it's not just about passive bonuses, but it's about access. How much of a character's kit do you want them to have? Do you heavily invest in one centerpiece? Or do you keep everyone balanced so the team functions as a cohesive unit? When you start thinking about Lumina and Pictos together, the system opens up. It's very flexible. You can build around a carry, you can build around a synergy, or you can build around adaptability. And that leads directly into party arrangement. You can only bring 3 characters into battle at a time. This limitation forces you to commit to an identity. Each character plays significantly differently, so choosing your starting 3 isn't just about preference, it's about how you would like your fights to unfold. Maybe you run Luna to apply fire, send up Mael to enter into virtual stance against burning enemies. When that clicks and that combo works, it feels incredible. Or maybe you choose Monoko for flexibility and unpredictable encounters. There isn't one correct answer, and I love that. Once you factor in skill selection, Lumina distribution, and Picto placement, building your party becomes its own strategic puzzle. You're constantly refining and experimenting with builds. It can get surprisingly complex, and that complexity is fun, but none of it would matter if the moment-to-moment combat didn't support it. One reason the combat feels so good is because it never makes you feel helpless. And now that might sound small, but it's actually a huge factor. In many turn-based RPGs, once you make your move, you're done. You select your ability, watch the animation, and then wait while the enemy attacks. There's really no interaction. And Expedition 33 changes that. When an enemy attacks, you still have agency. You can dodge and parry. You decide how that moment plays out. And that one design choice changes everything for me. And this is where the dodge and parry system starts to shine. Dodging is the safer option, and it's consistent. It keeps you alive while you learn enemy patterns. Parrying, though, is a commitment. The timing is tighter, the risk is higher, and the reward matters. But you gain an action point. If you land every parry, you trigger a counterattack. And that animation and sound design makes it feel so powerful. If a high-risk mechanic doesn't feel worth it to use, players are going to ignore it. But here, the payoff makes you want to improve and learn the parry system. What I appreciate most is that dodging isn't treated as the lesser option. Dodging has a purpose. When you face a new enemy, you start by dodging. You learn the rhythm, you get comfortable, and then you begin attempting parries. You can actually feel yourself improving. The game rewards understanding and it rewards patience. And because enemies vary so much, you're constantly adapting. You can't just autopilot through fights. You actually have to engage and think about encounters. And that is why the combat feels so purposeful. You can succeed because you crafted a smart build, because you mastered the mechanics, or you can combine both and become incredibly powerful. What I love is that the game doesn't force build-focused players to become parry experts overnight. And it also doesn't force mechanically skilled players to min-max every single stat, but it allows you to do both. And that balance and respect for all different player choices is rare. At the end of the day, what makes this combat special to me is ownership. You're responsible for how your team is built and how fights unfold. When something works, it feels like it's earned. And when something fails, you can usually trace it back to a decision and adjust accordingly. That combination of strategic depth and mechanical agency makes every single fight feel earned. And that's why the combat in Expedition 33 stands out to me. Thank you so much for watching. If you discovered any wild party combos or Picto setups, I'd genuinely love to hear about them, because this feels like a system that still has so much room to experiment with builds, and I personally love the building part of this game. Either way, thanks for all the support, and I'll see you in the next one.